Welcome to this explainer. When you sit down to watch a massive football derby, it's really easy to think you're just watching two local teams battling it out for 90 minutes. But what if I told you that the pitch is actually a canvas? Today, we're going to explore how the world's most intense football derbies reflect the deep societal, economic, and political fault lines of their host cities.
Our global tour today is going to be highly structured. We'll be looking at 1. More than a game. 2. Fla-Flu, the cultural carnival. 3. Industry, Liverpool versus United. 4. Belgrade's political eternal derby. 5. Old Firm, the sectarian divide. And finally, 6. The universal pitch.
Section 1. More than a game, the mirror of society.
Section 2. Fla-Flu, the cultural carnival, romance and rivalry in Rio.
Our first stop is Rio de Janeiro for the epic clash between Flamengo and Fluminense. Now, to really grasp this derby, we have to turn to the legendary Brazilian playwright Nelson Rodrigues. He was actually a die-hard Fluminense fan, and he immortalized the derby with these exact words. He totally elevated it from a mere sporting fixture into a grand literary event, painting the rivalry as something almost eternal, born before time itself.
And if you want to wrap your head around the sheer scale of what is known as the Derby of the Crowds, just think about this number, 177,656. That is the jaw-dropping, all-time record attendance figure from a 1963 match to decide the Rio Championship at the Maracanã. And believe it or not, the match ended in a 0-0 draw. Yet it's forever etched into folklore simply because of the breathtaking magnitude of the human gathering.
But the Fla-Flu isn't just about size. It's about unparalleled theatrical drama. Take the famous 1941 Derby of the Lake, for example. Flamengo desperately needed a goal to snatch the championship. They were attacking relentlessly, and Fluminense's players were absolutely terrified of cracking under the pressure. So what did they do? They literally started kicking the match balls out of the stadium and into the nearby Lagoa Rodrigo de Freitas, which is a massive lake. Flamengo staff actually had to jump into a rowboat to retrieve them. By the time the referee had enough and blew the final whistle, the game ended 2-2, and Fluminense won the league by effectively running down the clock in a lake. You can't write this stuff.
Of course, the Derby is also a grand stage for individual heroism and sometimes incredible betrayal. On one side, you have the colossal genius Zico, Flamengo's favorite son, who scored a record 19 derby goals at the Maracanã, including 4 in just one match back in 1986. But on the flip side, you have Renato Gaucho. He was a Flamengo legend who famously broke their hearts in the thrilling 1995 final. Playing for their bitter rivals Fluminense, he scored the decisive championship-winning goal with his stomach.
Section 3. Industry. Liverpool versus United, the economic fault line.
So, while Rio's rivalry is built on romance and carnival theater, our next stop shifts dramatically. Moving to northwest England, the rivalry between Liverpool and Manchester United is deeply rooted in 19th century industrial economics. This animosity actually began far away from the pitch. During the Industrial Revolution, Liverpool was a dominant global port, thriving on incoming trade. But in 1894, the opening of the Manchester Ship Canal allowed ships to bypass Liverpool entirely and bring goods directly into Manchester. This directly threatened Liverpool's economic survival, planting the seeds of an intense civic resentment that eventually spilled right onto the football pitch.
What started as an economic turf war quickly evolved into a relentless battle for footballing supremacy. Across 243 competitive matches, up to early 2025, you can see how incredibly tight this rivalry actually is. Manchester United holds a slight historical edge with 91 wins to Liverpool's 82. Together, these are the two most successful clubs in English football, hoarding a massive 95 major honors between them.
And the modern era of this rivalry has given us a timeline of matches that literally define generations. From nearly 100,000 fans watching Liverpool take the 1983 Milk Cup to the stunning 4-1 thrashing handed out by Liverpool in 2009. More recently, Liverpool has really dominated, culminating in a jaw-dropping 5-0 rout at Old Trafford in 2021 and a historic, almost unbelievable 7-0 annihilation at Anfield in 2023. The industrial competition of the 19th century is without a doubt very much alive on the grass of the 21st.
Section 4. Belgrade's political eternal derby, institutions of the state.
Now, we travel to Serbia for the Eternal Derby, a rivalry constructed directly from the political institutions of post-World War II Yugoslavia. Looking closely at the history, we can clearly see the state-engineered origins of these two titans. Both were founded in 1945 following the reorganization of Yugoslavia. Red Star was established by the anti-fascist youth, essentially becoming the club of the new civilian socialist order. Partizan, on the other hand, was founded as the club of the Yugoslav People's Army. So right from day one, this wasn't just some friendly neighborhood rivalry. It was a high-stakes institutional clash between the civilian and military wings of the state.
Today, the temperature of this rivalry is entirely controlled by the Ultras. We're talking about Red Star's the Lige on the north stand and Partizan's Grobari on the south stand. These highly organized supporter groups turn the stadium into a massive civic ritual space. They use choreographed displays, flags, and flares not just to support a team, but to express deep political and nationalist identities, as well as territorial markings.
Because of this dynamic, the Eternal Derby operates as a fascinating historical document. It acts kind of like Belgrade's argument with itself. These clubs still carry the institutional DNA of a Yugoslavia that no longer exists, yet they operate squarely inside the complex pressures of modern Serbian politics. The stadium stands often reveal societal tensions and public emotions that formal politics simply won't always say directly.
Section 5, Old Firm, the sectarian divide, religion and ethno-nationalism in Glasgow.
Our final specific stop brings us to Scotland for the legendary Old Firm derby between Celtic and Rangers. Here, the pitch acts as the most visible marker of a deep ethno-national and religious divide. Looking at the foundations of these two massive institutions, we see two vastly different cultural backgrounds. Celtic was founded in 1887 explicitly to alleviate poverty among Irish Catholic immigrants in Glasgow's slums, making it a focal point for Irish identity and the flying of the Irish tricolour. Rangers, founded a bit earlier in 1872, eventually became the bastion for Protestant British Unionism and the Union flag. This divide was so deeply entrenched that Rangers actually did not sign a Catholic player until the 1970s. But here is where the story takes a really fascinating turn. The data on religious identification shows that by 2013, 54% of Scots identified as having no religion. Scotland has become highly secular. Yet, despite the massive decline in actual religious adherence, the cultural fault lines represented by Celtic and Rangers have fiercely persisted.
The persistence of these fault lines is pretty striking. According to the Scottish Social Attitude Survey, a massive 88% of Scots still feel sectarianism is a continuing problem in their society today. And when asked what they feel contributes to this issue the most, a clear majority point directly to football. The stadium has essentially become the primary theater for historical grievances.
So today, the Old Firm represents an unrestrained clash of cultural exclusion. For many Celtic supporters, it's a space for a working-class Irishness to find a voice and display an identity they feel is sometimes derided by mainstream society. For many Rangers supporters, it's a space for Orange loyalism, reacting against what they perceive as threats to traditional British and Scottish identity. It is a localized ethno-national divide, played out on the pitch multiple times a year.
Section 6, the Universal Pitch, What Football Reveals. Across our highly structured global tour today, we've peeled back the layers of the sport to reveal something truly profound about human society. We've seen how the pitch acts as a universal mirror. In Rio, the Fla-Flu reflects the theatrical, unscripted drama of Brazilian cultural folklore. In Northwest England, a football match is a direct continuation of 19th century industrial economics and civic survival. In Belgrade, it's a window into the systemic politics and state memory of a fractured region. And in Glasgow, it remains the most potent, visible marker of historical, ethno-national, and sectarian divides.
Which brings us to an interesting thought to leave you with today. The next time you watch a fierce local sporting rivalry, whether it's in your hometown, your state, or your country, look past the athletes on the field. Ask yourself, what underlying societal, economic, or historical fault lines are they really showing you? Because as we've learned in this explainer, it is never, ever just a game.